Welcome back. Another episode of Braves Central. Barrett, Sallee, and Chris Dimino. Of course, we are the hosts of the Ford Leadoff Show on the Atlanta Braves radio network. And Chris, something happened this week, and I think with Brian Snitker, his future is and has been a hot topic all year long. He went a little bit more in depth on Wednesday about what his decision is. And right now, I think it's clear he doesn't have one. When he says that he wants to finish strong and go out with something other than what we have this season, it makes me think he truly is weighing his options. And Alex Anthopoulos, when he spoke with us earlier this week, said that conversation would happen after the season. But I thought that Snit would retire. If you'd asked me this question 3-4 months ago, now I'm not so sure.
So I think if this was a playoff year, no matter what would have happened in the playoffs, I think it would have been, we gave it another shot. We got there. World Series, obviously a hell of a way to get out. But if you would have fallen short, I think the lean would have been to I'm done. I think not being in the postseason, watching this team play at times as well as they can, losing or playing in 53 one-run games. I mean, that's crazy. That's 33% of your season already has been a one-run game. So you want the good news about that? The good news is you're in a lot of baseball games. The bad news is with 34 losses, you have the most one-run losses in baseball, and the only two teams that are close to you are the Pirates and the White Sox. So you are actually worse than them in one-run games, which is not a good sign unto itself. But if you look and you go, if we turn it around, if we're a 500 team on the road, we're right back in it. So there are reasons to believe that. I was just on with the morning guys, and there are two lists at the end of the year you don't want to be on, but one is worse than the other. The first one is teams that didn't make the playoffs, but we believe can make the playoffs next year. That's the list the Braves are on. There's the other list you don't want to be on, teams that didn't make the playoffs this year and will not make the playoffs next year. They're not on that list. So I think that list, let's just call it something that's, fake but real, is one of the reasons where Brian Snitker rightfully believes that next year will not be this year. And whether it's the injuries, that can't happen again. Whether it's the rotate, that can't happen again. Spencer's trying to hamp, that can't happen again. And you go, well, of course it could, but it doesn't feel like you're really supposed to get banged 2 years in a row with stuff like that. So he has a circle. I know this. We texted about it, and I'm not giving anything away. But at a certain point, he's going to have to sit down and, you just, for dramatic effect, I'll just say, in a quiet room, nobody around, and you're going to have to think about, what would I do if I'm not doing this? You know what it'll be if you do it. He's done it for, how many years he's been a manager, but certainly 50 years in baseball. He knows what a baseball season is. The real question he has to ask himself, and nobody can give him this answer, and he might not even get it right when he does it by himself, whatever right is. He's got to think about, what would I do if I didn't have this? He knows what the year is if he manages again. It's going to be ups, it's going to be downs, it's going to be whatever. But if he's not doing it, can he wrap his head around the idea that he'd be satisfied? I half joked, instead of one walk, what are you going to do? Take 2 walks a day? Is that going to fill you up? Is that going to satisfy you? I don't know. That's really what he has to ask himself. Not what it would be like if he does come back, but what would it be like if he doesn't?
Yeah, and a lot's been made of him wanting to be with his family, and I get that. And as a dad, I mean, you're a dad, and I'm a dad of a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old. Playing with the kids is great. If he wants to play with the grandkids, great, but they have lives too. Sometimes you just don't see them, So it's one of those things where it's kind of a double-edged sword. But you're right; he knows what it is to have a baseball season. But I think you mentioned that this year can't happen again next year. And I was kind of looking back. I'm like, well, last season was kind of a precursor to what we have now, because we had Chris Sale scratched about 2 hours before a playoff game. There was injuries all over the place last season. And so it was almost like an appetizer to what happened this year. So, going into this year, it's like, oh, well, it can't happen again. Well, it did. And it happened on an even greater scale. So that's the risk you take if you're Brian Snitker coming back.
Well, I'll give you one other one, though. What happens, and somebody sent me a message, a text message, and he said, the gist of it was, my wife's a bigger Braves fan than me, and I'm a big Braves fan. He said, my wife loves Brian Snitker. The fact that he took this over with class and dignity and the World Series on top of all that stuff. But he said that she said to him, if we go through another stretch like this next year, am I going to feel the same way? And I was like, whoa, that's pretty interesting. Because I think this year is a one-off. I don't think anybody blames Brian Snitker for the record this year. There are certainly things over 162 where you go, don't like that move, don't like that move. Why is he doing that with the lineup? Another one-run loss. I wish he would have done this or could have done that. All those things are in play. What, God forbid, happens if it's 2 months into the season and it's not going well and the organization thinks it's time to make a change? They need a kickstart. They need something. You know, do you get to the point where you have to figure out, okay, am I going to actually relieve him of the job if it's not going well for 2 months? You know, so those are things that I think Brian Snitker, he understands the reality of this game. You're hired to be fired. He has a boss. If it's not going well, and there's no guarantee that it goes well next year, you know, it's not like they give you a pass to the playoffs. If he knew that I'll guarantee you go to the postseason, I guarantee you come back. But what if it's June 1st and the team has struggled for 2 months? Does it become a thing where they feel they have to make a change? That changes.
You might run out of equity.
Well, that changes the dynamic in terms of what everybody feels and how happy, you know, you could be if this had been a playoff year or if he had decided to step away.
It's a very unique situation, and we talked about this a couple days ago on a pregame show. This is not normal for the Braves. I mean, there's a couple of generations that do not know how to handle this, have not seen this. As fans, you know, once Bobby Cox was hired, you know, Freddie Gonzalez was the natural progression. Snit took over as the interim, but if you recall correctly, they finished strong that season under Snit. So yeah, they looked around, but it was kind of a decision, but it really wasn't that much of an open manager search.
He had
is going to be one.
Yeah, he had the most important guy in that team, Freddie Freeman, basically knock on the door saying that guy's the manager, make him the manager.
Yeah.
And then other players did the same. Now, do I think guys like Chris Sale and others, Austin Riley, Matt Olson would do that for Brian Snitker? Absolutely. I don't know if that happens twice in a guy's career or not, or if the front office doesn't say thank you, but we're thinking about making a change. Look, there is one other dynamic in this. They sit down at the end of the year and maybe, you know, there's this idea that, hey, you know, we do think it's time that you step away and we have a plan and you're going to be able to do this and you're going to, you know, you'll be around the organization doing that. That could be part, you know, that could be the conversation as well. And do you then, you certainly, if that was the case, and I do think it's Brian Snitker's decision, but let's just say it comes down to where it feels like that, you give him an opportunity to retire. You know, there's nothing that has to be, oh my God, what just happened? You know, that sometimes the things behind the closed doors for a reason. And then everybody could at least say, okay, we came to an agreement and Brian Snitker will have whatever title, whatever position. I keep joking. He'll have golf shirts down in Northport. He'll have a uniform down in Northport. Whichever one he wants to put on the days that he's down there, whether he's down there for a week, 2 weeks, or 7, he'll have that choice as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a really interesting thing. And the other part, let's just be honest, there is a baseball element to this. I think everybody, while I don't think the U-Hauls are out the way that we talk about it in football, my God, everybody can't wait to get the hell out of here. But there is a hint of can't wait to get the hell out of here because this year has just been, so it's been a bitch. And here comes Houston, and Houston's tied for first place, and they're tied with Seattle, and the Rangers are 2 games back, and they play the Rangers and the Mariners next week. They got 2-hit shutout last night. Kevin Gausman shoved on them last night. So they're going to come in. They didn't have an off day Thursday, getting shut out. Kevin Gausman threw a complete game last night against them. So they're tied. They've got to be a good baseball team because they're playing Seattle and Texas. I'm going to find it interesting. Framber Valdez is going to pitch. Waldrop goes tonight. I think it was to be determined for them. Hunter Brown's a really good pitcher. And Joey Wentz, Framber Valdez, Wentz coming off the disaster of the last one, you know, they will go to the mound knowing they have the advantage on Sunday, but let's see what happens in the 2 games before that.
Yeah, Hurston Waldrop tonight. That's always fun to watch him pitch. He's been stellar all season long. I'm excited to see him in this situation. You're right, because, you know, it's not desperation time for Houston, but you're kind of getting close to desperation time if you're the Astros right now. So spoiler is, you know, I don't like playing, you know, saying that it's you know, Braves are trying to be spoiler. The Braves are trying to set themselves up for success. The Braves are trying to win baseball games. And considering the circumstances and where they are this year, this is a big-ish, based on the scale, baseball game, especially for Hurston Waldrop, because he's going in thinking, okay, this is a tough lineup, A. This is a team that has underperformed, B. And C, this is a team that's desperate. So if they're desperate, then let's make it hurt. Let's make it hurt a little bit. So, Hurston's gone through all of these different scenarios, right? The only one he hasn't gone through this year is pitching a big game. He can't really do that, obviously. But in terms of where we are, September 12th, 2025, this is about as big as it can get for him this year. Can't wait to see how he reacts.
Last weekend, we saw Chris Sale and Hurston Waldrop do something against a team that then exploded for a whole bunch of runs in the 12 innings after that, including Joey Wentz. The thing that is interesting to me is if you would have said on August 1st to the Houston Astros, hey, man, you're tied for first, you're coming to Atlanta. You're going to have Hurston Waldrop, Bryce Elder, and Joey Wentz start against you. First of all, it would have been who's Hurston Waldrop, because he hadn't even gone to Bristol at that point. You would have looked at Bryce Elder's ERA and the crap that he was throwing around in July, and you would have said, thank God. And then Joey Wentz, you would have said, Joey Wentz, isn't he a reliever up in Minnesota? It was no, he's here now. He's starting for the Atlanta Braves. He's actually had
had a little success, too.
Yeah, so, the calendar changes a lot of things. The rotation that you see during the course of a season, whether you see the 1 and 2 and 3, 3 and 4 and 5, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and a guy that nobody's heard of because he's making his third start, you just don't know, especially in September, what it is you're going to face. I'm interested. Bryce Elder's throwing the ball really well. Waldrop's throwing the ball really well. Wentz is trying to, I don't know what he's vying for, but he certainly doesn't want the stench of 8 runs hanging over his head very long. He gets a chance to eliminate that coming up on Sunday. So, there were things. There were things going on. There's an expanded roster. There's bullpen things you're working on. But let's be honest, and it's been a while. It's as the great Leroy Neiman said, when Thunderlips and Rocky Balboa had that exhibition that seemed a little bit more like an exhibition for one guy as opposed to the other. It's over. Thank God. That's the reality of the Braves season 2025 right now.
Yeah, we're getting to that point for sure. It's the home stretch. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting weekend for a lot of different reasons. So hopefully the Braves can at least win the series and make it hurt a little bit for the Astros in the process. He's Chris Dimino. I'm Barrett Sallee. This is Braves Central. Definitely share it with everybody you know. Write a review, do all of that stuff. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you know how to do the podcast thing, but your neighbor might not. So let them know how they can get the best Braves coverage in the entire internet world. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you Monday, hopefully with 2 wins over the next 3 games. Thank you for listening.